Welcome to the archives of legend and lore. I am the KI GM, and every week I will bring a monster, humanoid, aberration, or some other being to the gaming table and put it in the spotlight, so to say. We'll discuss some of the lore, the differences in additions, and possible ways to use them in your one-shot or campaign. For the month of October, we shall look into the various monsters associated with movies and horror tales. I am also releasing a module for Halloween titled Pagoria's Plight. It will be pay what you want or free for your enjoyment at the DM's Guild, Drive Thru RPG, or on my new Etsy page. And it is currently available, so rush there and get it right now. For the third installment of our October Chaos Fun, you'll want your mummy. No, it won't make you a sandwich, but it might make you a sacrifice. Let's wrap up the intro and jump into story time with The King's Return. I hope you enjoy. Thaddeus was always at home in the tombs of the ancients. He didn't have to worry about what to wear, how to act, or whose butt to kiss. Down here, digging in the sand, documenting and deciphering, that is where he belonged. He had been down here for almost a week now. He missed the sun and fresh air a little, but no one bothered him here. On the surface, there were always questions and reports. The only reason anyone helped with the funding of the projects was for a share of the treasure, and they always wanted updates. So far, the only treasures he found were of the scholarly type. If he didn't find something soon, he'd have to lie. No loot, no funding. It would be so much easier if the ancients hadn't trapped dang near everything. The going was slow and laborious. He'd have to head up for supplies soon. He was almost out of oil for his lamps and parchment for documenting. Thaddeus' mind was wandering, and he nearly shifted his weight right onto a trap tile. They seemed easy for him to spot here for some reason, almost like he'd been here before. Ludicrous. This tomb had been sealed for centuries, maybe even a millennia. He never just sidestepped traps. That was a good way to have some fool set them off. He missed Derek. That was his lesson, and he learned it. A couple clicks, and a snap, and the dart trap was disarmed. He was to the next door, and hoped this would lead to the burial chamber, but he had a feeling it didn't. He wasn't quite deep enough yet, he thought. Checking the edges for traps before opening it was second nature to him. None on this door. He pulled the green scarab key from his chain on his neck and slid it into the barely noticeable slot on the wall. A click, and a blast of stale air met him as the door opened, just a crack. Gently, Thaddeus grabbed the door and pulled it open the rest of the way, always keeping the slab of rock between him and the room. His apprentice Chance didn't heed his warning, and a spear caught him off guard. In the chin. He had promised, too. No flying metal, no poison gas, nothing. It all seemed good for him to enter. Without thinking, Thaddeus extended his torch to the other side of the door and lit the braziers there. He stopped. It felt like he knew the room. He knew right where they were. Light engulfed the room, illuminating not the treasure room, not the burial chamber, but a good find still. The room had shelves filled with books. On the end of the bookcases, ornate gold and silver shields and weapons hung. Some had scepters with jewels embedded in them, good enough to keep the people up at camp interested and off his back for a good long time. He cared not for the trinkets and baubles. He knew the books were the true treasure. The lost knowledge and information they contained would be priceless. His arrangements for the dig were simple. He kept 5% of the gold from the treasure and all the books and scrolls. He never seemed to have a problem finding someone to agree. This find would already pay his partners triple what they spent. Along the far wall, standing on either side of the door, leading deeper, was a mummified guard. They stood in full ceremonial dress, armor, weapons, and gold adornments. Spears crossed over the door. They were exquisite. It seemed like that next room would either be the full treasury or the final resting place of the one that was entombed here. It was odd. Thaddeus had yet to come across anything with the Ancient One's name anywhere. They usually flaunted their names. Most believed themselves to be gods, as did their followers. That is why they had these grand tombs, to take things with them in the afterlife, or to come back and reclaim them when they arose from the place of the dead. Thaddeus carelessly walked up to the door as he was thinking. He stopped at the door. He looked back. He had stepped around several tiles and a tripwire without ever even noticing him. He heard movement from behind him, like a cling of metal. Quickly spinning around, he saw nothing. Wait a moment. The spears had moved. They no longer blocked the door, but were resting upright in the guard's other hands. The way was clear. There was no slot in this door, only an imprint of a hand in the center of it. Thaddeus slowly raised his hand, watching the guards as he placed his hand in the depression. His hand fit perfectly, and the door slid inwards, opening. Wall torches and braziers came to life in the room, illuminating every corner and crevice. A throne sat in the center of the room on a raised platform. It was empty. Off of the platform to each side there was a table, 3 chairs set at each, empty plates, goblets, and platters set on the table itself. On the outer walls, 7 sarcophagi stared inwards, 3 behind each table and 1 bigger, more ornate one behind the throne. This was it, the burial chamber. Odd that no food was set out. Usually there was a grand feast set out for the dead and the remains of it are left as dust when he finds them. 3 doors are on the opposite walls from the one he came in. Movement from all around him, his senses scream to him. He turns to leave just as the door closes. The lids are opening on all the sarcophagi except the large one. He watches. His curiosity wins over his flight mechanism. Inside each of the sarcophagi, a perfectly preserved mummy stands, arms crossed facing the tables. One, on the opposite side of the room, takes a slow, stiff step out. This is it. Thaddeus had heard of mummies protecting the treasures, but always thought them to be ghost stories. He had been in how many tombs, and never, once, even a twitch. He was wrong, and it would cost him everything. All the mummies were walking out now, slowly moving towards the tables. They each take a seat, their heads turned toward him. A small voice. "Master Thaddeus, they are waiting for you to take your seat." A small reptilian-looking creature steps out from behind the throne. They have waited so long, so very long. Thaddeus slowly walks towards the throne, eyeing the creature. "How do you know my name?" "Because you made us, Master. Don't worry, you went for a walk to see what the world held, to see if now was the time to rise again, to take your rightful place as a god. Just have a seat in your throne, and all will be made clear." Thaddeus, confused, walks to the throne. He's drawn to it, almost compelled to sit down. He feels power, feels it radiating from himself. His destiny awaits. All he has to do is return, to sit, and return. He eases himself into the throne, sliding all the way to the back. It feels like it was made for him. He is enthralled with the power he feels. So much so, he barely notices the spikes that shot out from the throne and pierce his flesh. As his blood flows from this vessel, it collects into a diamond-encrusted bowl at his feet. This body takes one long, final breath, and then ceases to move. The reptilian form takes the bowl and carries it back to the final, large sarcophagus, and pours the blood into a bowl carved into the lid. Greedily, the fluid is absorbed into the depths. The lid slides open, and the bandaged form inside exhales a long breath. A loud booming voice comes from the new mummy. "Today, we claim what is ours. We take back our lands from the weak ones in it now." The reptilian form starts to remove the bandages, revealing Thaddeus. In his true form, and with all of his knowledge and power. The doors open, and instead of treasures, the rooms behind are massive and contain an army of undead. A quick disclaimer again. I am still battling this cold, sinuses, whatever you want to call it. So my voice is still a little off, but I think it's better than what it's been. So, again, please bear with me. Mummies were mainly created to serve as eternal guardians, according to Pathfinder. The method of creating a mummy guardian is a laborious and sadistic process that begins well before the poor soul to be transformed is dead, during which the victim is ritualistically starved of nourishing food and instead fed strange spices, preserved agents, and toxins intended to quicken the desiccation of the flesh. The victim remains immobile but painfully aware during the final stages, where its now useless entrails are extracted. Holy wow. Before it's shrouded in funerary wrappings and entombed with a sarcophagus to await intrusions in the potentially distant future. While it's certainly possible to use other methods to create a mummy guardian from an already deceased body, those who seek to create these fallen dead as their guardians in the afterlife often feel that such methods result in inferior undead, the pain and agony of death by mummification being an essential step in the process. Sadistic is right, wow. Mummy guardians are more than just physical shells of flesh and bone. They retain fragmented, distorted versions of their minds, with only enough memories of their living personality remaining to fuel their undead anger and jealousy of those who yet live. This burning rage only intensifies over the centuries of waiting within a crypt for the chance to actually act, and thus, when most mummy guardians are awoken by tomb robbers or adventurers, they stop at nothing in pursuit of glorious slaughter. 5th edition's intro is excellent once again. Raised by dark funerary rituals, a mummy shambles from the shrouded stillness of a time-lost temple or tomb. Having been awoken from its rest, it punishes its transgressors with the power of its unholy curse. The long burial rituals that accompany a mummy's entombment help protect its body from rot. In the embalming process, the newly dead creature's organs are removed and placed in special jars, and its corpse is treated with preserving oils, herbs, and wrappings. As a mummy endures its undeath, it animates in response to conditions specified by the ritual. Most commonly, a trespass into its tomb, taking its treasures, or attacking former loved ones or those it's sworn to protect will cause it to come to rise. Some mummies were powerful individuals that displeased a high priest or pharaoh, or who committed crimes of treason, adultery, or murder. As punishment, they were cursed with eternal undeath, embalmed, mummified, and sealed away. Wow, that's pretty brutal. Other times, mummies, acting as tomb guardians, are created from slaves but put to death specifically to serve a greater purpose. A mummy obeys the conditions and perimeters laid down by the rituals that created it. Rare magic can undo or dispel the ritual that gave rise to a mummy, allowing it to truly die. Though they seldom bother to do so, mummies can actually speak. As a result, some serve as undead repositories of lost lore, and can be consulted by the descendants of those who created them. Wow. So, why take all the time to write a book when you could just teach it to a mummy? Powerful individuals sometimes intentionally sequester mummies away for occasional consultation. A mummy doesn't require air, food, drink, or sleep. Bring forth the mummy. We have questions of what our grandfather meant by ham sandwich. Mummies, in 2nd edition, are corpses native to dry, desert areas, where the dead are entombed by a process known as mummification. Mummy, whatever. When their tombs are disturbed, the corpses become animated, whose unholy hatred of life causes them to attack living things without mercy. Mummies are usually, but not always, clothed in rotting strips of linen. They stand between 5 and 7 feet tall and are supernaturally strong. Mummies are the product of an embalming process used on wealthy and important people. Most mummies are corpses without magical properties. On occasion, perhaps, due to powerful evil magic or because an individual was so greedy in life that he refuses to give up his treasure, the spirit of the mummified person will not die, but taps into energy and is transformed into an undead horror. Most mummies remain dormant until their treasure is taken, but when they become aroused... they become aroused? That would be kind of awkward. Like they wake up. Yeah, I got it. They kill without mercy. A mummy lives in its ancient burial chamber, usually in the heart of a crypt or pyramid. Now, let's open the tomb and peek into the sarcophagus of my chaos and awaken my inner creativity. It's time for the Chaos Creative Corner. Scenario 1. Let's start off with an old, tried and true dungeon crawl into a tomb. The party has been sent to recover the lost treasure of King Lord and his amulet, the amulet of no nameness. They fight their way through some of the tomb, solve puzzles and other parts, or maybe they fall down a collapse in the wall and are at the end of the tomb right away. It has been untouched for centuries. Gold, jewels, scrolls, and stuffed cats are everywhere. But they only have to retrieve the amulet. It was said to be buried with the king himself. An ornate sarcophagus sits on the dais in the center of the room. The cover, which is made entirely of gold, slides off easily. Inside rests the mummified body of King Lord. Around his neck is a platinum chain and an amulet. When the amulet is touched, the hand of the mummy shoots up and grabs the party member by the wrist. Holy crap, I made myself jump there. Ooh. The mummy stares at the person's wrist he has and quietly, hoarsely, says their name. Bob? Is that you? My favorite servant? You haven't aged a bit. What are you doing here? Plot twist. The party member looks exactly like his servant from when he was alive. The party can either attack the mummy, maybe try and talk their way out of the situation. It's your group, and now it's your adventure. Scenario 2. A town built on the edge of a desert nestled in some mountains is being plagued. It seems like an almost endless supply come at night and disappear at dawn. They attack and try to kill anything alive, including the head of the town's pet cat, Fluffy. This all started when there was a collapse in the basement of the keep. He had hired workers to come in and fix the damage, which they did, but ever since the attack started, the people hired are all dead, save one man, and no one can find him. So, yeah, he might be dead too. The others were found ripped apart after the mummies attacked. I'll let you in on a secret, DM. Come closer. Close. Hey, whoa. That's way too close, buddy. I can feel your breath. The builders ventured down into the collapse and found treasure, mainly gold and gems. They each took what they could carry out in bags without raising any suspicions. To stop the attacks, the adventurers either need to... It's a cave, outside of town, in the mountains, and kill them all, or return all the stolen loot. The loot will be scattered out in the workers' houses. The missing man can be found in the crypt, and must have gone back for more, but got caught. They find most of him. I'll let you fill in the rest of the details. Scenario 3. Let's do the mash. The monster mash. Oh, sorry, I know. I can't sing. But for this scenario, your adventurers can witness this odd event and just move on or try and end it so no one else gets hurt. I mean, up to them. The party comes upon a clearing, and holy cow, there's a zombie horde heading for that farmhouse. But wait, before it gets there, the zombies are attacked by, wait for it, you know it. I mean, you know what I'm going to say, right? A festival of mummies descends upon the zombies. It gets pretty gruesome. Bandages being torn, arms flying off, already dead bodies falling, and then getting back up again. I'll tell you the punchline of this scenario, and I'll let you fill in the how and the where. The zombie horde wandered through the area protected by the mummies and inadvertently snagged some of the gold thread from the spoils while shambling by. It's a slow process, but eventually all be dead, or undead. Heck, I don't know. One side will stop moving. How's that sound? I roll a d6 for each side as an attack, and that many fall for that turn until only one side stands. It's up to you and your players how it's handled. What? Chaos doesn't always have to be dark and scary. Fun is chaotic too. I believe I'm at the end of my bandage. My mummy is calling, and it's time to wrap things up. I hope you enjoyed our stroll through the chaos. If you did, why not give me a thumbs up? Maybe even a comment or two. I'm on Facebook, YouTube, and most podcast feeders. If you haven't already, why not subscribe so you won't miss a thing? I hope you'll join me for the next bit of October fun when we look at what? Okay, I was just told I'm not allowed to ruin the surprise. Remember, if you truly are chaotic, your players will never know what you'll throw at them next.